Hello there, and thank you for coming back to Sleepy Tales by John, a place where bedtime stories about the universe are written just for you. I'm John, the one who will sit beside you tonight, like an old friend who has always been waiting for you to return after a long, tiring day out in the world. In our previous nights together, we've wandered through the halo of the moon, walked along little roads paved with stardust, and listened to legends resting inside faraway galaxies. You and I have looked up at the sky like gentle dreamers. And tonight, as the sky lets down a strangely quiet veil over everything, I want to tell you a new story. A story that begins at the very farthest edge of what human eyes have ever seen. Out there is no noise, no booming explosions from stars. Only the whisper of the universe itself, silent, slow, and deeply enchanting. What would you say if I told you that the most powerful telescope humanity has ever built has looked so far into space that it has found things that, according to our own rules, simply should not exist? And what if the images that James Webb sends back have kept scientists awake through many long nights, just because they seem to challenge almost everything we believed we understood about the cosmos? Those observations are making us think again. They are so unexpected that they are quietly rewriting our cosmology textbooks in real time. They are making even those who have spent their entire lives watching the sky stop and ask themselves, have we been seeing the universe wrong all this time? Before we walk deeper into those strange discoveries, let me tell you a little bit about Webb, that golden companion drifting millions of miles away from Earth. Webb is not just a $10 billion machine, not just 20 years of waiting. It is like an ancient mirror floating through the cosmic night, quietly gathering light that has been wandering for billions of years, just to send back to us a handful of memories from the universe's very first dawn. And what it has seen out there is not just surprising. These are things that, by the very laws of physics we currently trust, are simply impossible. If this gentle journey brings you even a small feeling of ease, I would be so grateful if you considered subscribing or leaving a like. In a quiet, invisible way, it helps other dreamy souls who love gazing at the night sky find their way here more easily. But for now, let your eyes soften. Let your mind lie down beside this story, and together, let's step into the deepest regions of the universe. Out in the endless dark, millions of miles away from us, there is a silent friend floating like a golden lantern hanging in the ancient shadows of space. That friend is called James Webb. But tonight, let me give it a gentler name: the mirror that listens to light. Imagine this. In a blackness so deep that every sound is swallowed whole, a giant mirror slowly unfolds its metal petals, shimmering and perfectly still. No one stands beside it to wipe away dust, yet it remains crystal clear. No hand reaches out to turn it, yet it always faces exactly where it needs to look. It doesn't speak, doesn't sing, doesn't make a sound, and yet it is listening to an invisible symphony. A piece of music written in rays of light that have been wandering through space for billions of years. Webb drifts through the night, and the night drifts through Webb. And in that silence, tiny strands of light, thin as silk, slowly make their way to that golden mirror. They have traveled so far that time itself has almost lost its original shape around them. Some of those rays come from galaxies that disappeared long ago. Some come from the very first days of the universe, when everything was soft, brand new, and had not yet been given any name at all. No matter how fragile they are, Webb holds on to those rays with all the patience it has. Like an old friend, quietly listening to the story of an era that no one else remembers anymore. Webb is not merely observing. That word is far too small for what it does. It is looking back into the universe's memory as if you were opening a diary hidden at the bottom of time, where every page is written with the very first breaths of existence. When Webb turns its golden mirror toward the farthest regions of space, it is touching the universe's first dream. The dream of a child opening its eyes to the world for the very first time. And you'll notice that in that place, nothing is loud. There are no great explosions, no blinding flashes, only the calm of an ancient dawn slowly rising in silence. Webb has sent back images that make humanity quietly hold its breath, not because they are frightening, not because they are impossible to grasp, but because they are so beautiful. Beautiful in a raw, primordial way, filled with questions we thought we had already answered. Science once told us a very different story, that the early universe was simple, empty, and that there simply wasn't enough time for complicated structures to form. But Webb has gently placed its hand on our shoulder and whispered, maybe that story was never complete. What Webb sees is like opening a book and expecting the first page to hold a few rough sketches, but instead finding a fully written paragraph, with character, structure, light and shadow already woven together. A story that is already grown, at a moment when it should still be nothing more than a child learning how to speak. Every time Webb catches a new ray of light, it is not just an image, it is a message. A slice of time, a breath from the universe's very first ages, and the way Webb sends those signals back to us feels like a kind friend leaning in to softly whisper in our ear. Look, a little closer. Everything might be more beautiful and stranger than you once believed. So when Webb looks through time, it is not only seeing the past, it is helping us look again at the things we thought were certain. It presses very gently at the edge of our thinking and says, in a universe this vast, perhaps truth is as soft and flexible as light itself. And that is exactly where the next part of our story begins. At the moment when the models we once trusted begin to dissolve like stardust slipping through Webb's open hand. Now you can almost feel that every beam of light touching it carries a story from somewhere very far away, very long ago, and very different. They come like ancient guests, tapping softly on metal petals and whispering, "Listen again," to the story the universe wrote in its first days. And inside that whisper, we start to realize something quietly enormous. Everything we thought we knew for decades about the universe's earliest dawn is beginning to crack. Not in a way that frightens us, but in a way that is soft, strange, and oddly comforting. Like suddenly finding a forgotten line in an old diary. A single detail that makes you want to read the whole thing again, from the very beginning. For such a long time, humans have been telling each other a familiar tale. That the early universe was simple, empty, cold, dark. Like a room where no candle has been lit. A place with no galaxies yet. No stars. No complex structures of any kind. In that age, according to the traditional story, there were only a few flickering dots of light scattered across a vast, unfinished mixture. But when Webb gazes into that realm, with its delicate golden eyes, the story stops sounding true. What Webb sees is like opening the first page of a fairy tale and unexpectedly finding the ending already there. It feels strange, as if time itself has been folded, as if the chapters of the universe have not followed the neat order we once believed. Webb looks into regions where there should have been only the first grains of cosmic dust, and instead, it finds galaxies so huge that you may have to sit still for a moment just to take them in. Galaxies glowing brightly, spiraling in complex patterns, crowded like cities that have already been fully formed. And yet they appear right in the middle of the universe's first morning. This can only be described with two words: not possible. According to the old models that used to teach us. Not possible, according to the rules about how fast stars are allowed to form. Not possible, according to the timeline we thought we understood. And yet, instead of crashing into us like a shock, This discovery feels more like a cool, gentle breeze sliding through the mind, leaving behind a quieter kind of wonder, like wandering into a young forest and suddenly seeing an ancient tree that has been standing there for thousands of years, even though every theory says that forest is far too young to hold such a giant. A little confusion, a little enchantment, and a great deal of tender amazement. Webb shows us galaxies that are not only larger than expected, they seem older, brighter, more structured, as if they've had a very long time to mature. But they haven't, at least not according to what we once believed. And that makes the old models, the ones that tried to describe how the universe formed and grew, begin to tremble like grains of stardust slipping from the palm of a hand. Not because they were completely wrong, but because they only ever described the surface of a much deeper story. Webb is opening a new chapter for us, a chapter we never even knew was there. We thought we understood where the universe began and how it grew up, but Webb has gently set a new piece of evidence on the table, asking us to reread everything from the start. Slowly, calmly, the way you turn the pages of a book you've just found again after many years. The old models don't shatter with a loud crack. They melt away with a breath as soft as dust. Like starlight loosening from an old wall, like an aged page catching the light and revealing another layer of writing beneath. And gradually, you begin to see that what Webb shows us is not just a series of images. It is a quiet reminder that the universe may have begun with a rhythm far softer, more flexible, and more mysterious than anything we have ever drawn on paper. Maybe time in those first ages did not flow smoothly at all, but stretched and curled like a ribbon. Maybe enormous structures did not need billions of years to form, only a handful of conditions we still don't know how to name. Maybe the story we've been telling about the universe's childhood is only the first half of the book, and Webb has only just turned to the next page. When you take a soft breath and allow your imagination to unfold, you begin to see that the beauty of this discovery isn't in how it breaks science. It lies in how it opens a new space for us to dream, to wonder, to listen to the story of the universe with gentler ears. Things that should not exist are existing. Things that should not be happening are happening. And instead of bringing fear, they carry a feeling very much like witnessing a quiet miracle you never prepared your heart to receive. Like the first light before dawn, like the first drop of dew resting on a leaf, like the first chapter of a complete story appearing sooner than expected. And when the old models melt like stardust in our hands, when things we once believed to be unchanging soften, shift, and reveal deeper folds of the cosmos, a strange tenderness slips into our awareness, a gentle bewilderment, like reading a familiar book and suddenly finding pages that were never there, even though the book has rested on your shelf for years. In that moment, when old understanding cracks like thin ice, Webb leads us to something even stranger, a scene so dreamlike that if I only described it, you might think I was telling a bedtime dream rather than a truth of the universe. Imagine this, the early universe like a misty dawn, the first light still weak, still trembling. Space, according to everything we were taught, should have been simple, young, empty, a place just learning how to ignite its first sparks of light. Yet when James Webb cast its golden eyes through that ancient fog, it didn't see a universe learning to walk. It saw cities of light, already grown long before anything should have begun. Massive galaxies, home to hundreds of billions of stars, shimmering like radiant streets, appeared in an era when they simply could not have existed. They were large, bright, dense, as if someone had quietly built an entire civilization of light in the sleepy morning of the cosmos. When Webb sent home those first images, many scientists thought there must have been an error, because what it found was like seeing a towering ancient tree rising in the middle of a forest that had only just sprouted. breathtaking, but so contradictory that it leaves you still and wordless. A tree cannot grow that fast. A galaxy cannot grow that fast, unless there is something about the early universe we have all overlooked. You can picture these galaxies as glowing cities in a world that had barely begun to breathe. They shine like islands of light in a dark ocean. Each galaxy a gathering of newborn suns, woven into streams of blue-yellow light, like a river of brightness flowing gently through time. When Webb saw them, it wasn't merely capturing a picture. It was uncovering an ancient memory the universe had carried for billions of years, sending it to us on light that had traveled until it grew tired. And the strangest part is how these galaxies seem to reach a soft kind of completion far too early, as if someone had placed within them a rhythm of maturity beyond their true age. They were dense, rounded, structured, things that should have required billions of years to form. Yet in the moment when the universe had only just opened its eyes, they were already beautiful, radiant, impossibly complete. When I look at those images, I don't think of anomalies or data errors. I think of something softer, like opening your window at dawn and finding a view so breathtaking it slows your heartbeat for a moment. That feeling is not suspicion, but gratitude. Gratitude for being allowed to witness something no one should have been able to see. Imagine standing in a newborn forest, where the shoots are still thin as threads, and in the center stands a colossal ancient tree, its trunk wide, its crown vast, its roots wrapped deeply around the earth. What would you think? Would you question it? Or simply stand there, silent, humbled by its strange beauty? Webb, too, is standing in such a forest, and it has found the ancient giants of the cosmos, galaxies so enormous that they compel us to reconsider everything we believed about the formation of all things. These galaxies are not just beautiful, they are like whispers from the beginning, as though the universe itself is saying that its past is far more intricate than we imagined, that what we call the beginning may only be a small corner of a much grander tale. And in the stillness of space, when Webb peers deep into distant shadows, these cities of light stand quietly, not loud, not hurried, simply shining, with enough truth to show that the universe did not unfold the way we once believed, as if its entire history has been rewritten in light, and Webb is merely the first to read the new script. These impossibly early galaxies make us wonder, did time once flow faster? Are the laws of physics we know today just a late version of something older? Or perhaps the universe has early chapters we have never glimpsed, and from that question, a beautiful silence spreads. The kind of silence that happens right as night settles, when the wind pauses for a breath, giving us the sense that some things lie far beyond imagination, yet are gentle enough not to frighten. These galaxies, ancient and brilliant, seem to whisper that the universe, like ourselves, holds parts no one fully understands, and those parts are beautiful in their own quiet way. So, let your imagination drift softly. Let these cities of light float across your mind like islands drifting over a night sun. Let their glow soften your eyes, slow your breathing, widen the small inner chamber of your heart. Because the deeper you go into these mysteries, the more you realize sometimes contradictions are what make the universe strangely lovable. All right, as we are still wrapped in that lingering wonder, standing before those cities of light rising in the dawn of the cosmos, galaxies so large they seem to have lived entire lifetimes before the universe itself opened its eyes, another whisper enters the story, so soft that if you didn't pause, you might think it was simply a breeze passing through your imagination. But if you stop for a moment, relax your shoulders, and lean your ear into that quiet, you'll hear a deeper sound, low and ancient, like the breathing of an old well. The black holes James Webb has observed are not unfamiliar names. They've lived in textbooks, in films, in stories of science that both frighten and fascinate us. But the black holes Webb discovered are different. They were not born at the right time. They appeared too soon, grew too fast, aged too quickly, as though they had lived billions of years before time even began to flow. Imagine a black hole, not as something frightening, but as a deep well resting at the edge of a silent forest. It doesn't roar or threaten. It simply breathes in a slow, faint rhythm. When it inhales, light dims, and when it exhales, the space around it grows still. A breath that uses no air. A breath made of time and light. In Webb's quiet gaze, a black hole is not an ending, but a barely opened doorway leading into regions so silent you could hear the echoes of the universe's earliest hours. At the moment Webb is observing, when the universe was only a few 100 million years old, such enormous black holes should not have existed. They need time to grow, to gather matter, to become those heavy dark wells from which not even light can escape. Yet just like the ancient trees standing among young saplings, these black holes were already complete, rising in a universe still in its infancy, as if they had been placed there from the very beginning. Universe. Solitary planets are precipitated from the Earth, discharged from the Earth, and the way Webb perceives them is magical, not through dense, dramatic images, but through whispers of light, stretched rays, slight bends, colors warped gently, as though time near them beats a little slower. These signs are like soft ripples on a pond after a stone slips beneath the surface. Subtle, but enough to tell you something deep and heavy is resting below. There are moments in Webb's data where scientists quietly ask, is this real? Because for such massive black holes to exist so early, the universe would have had to race ahead too quickly or harbor a hidden mechanism we've never imagined. But when you look at these images, the quiet, dark spirals resting inside dim light, fear doesn't arrive. Instead, there is a beauty born from absolute stillness. Imagine you're walking through a desert at night. A soft breeze, cool sand beneath your feet, the sky stretched endlessly overhead, and suddenly before you, a deep, ancient well. It does not glow or speak, but its presence is undeniable, a presence that keeps you from stepping too close, yet draws your eyes again and again. Black holes in the universe feel just like that. Things that do not need brightness to be radiant because they shine with silence itself. Webb sees these dark wells and sends home to Earth slivers of ancient light that traveled billions of years to reach us. Each sliver carries a story of time bending, space twisting, matter dissolving like dew in your palm. And listening to these whispers in the quiet night, we begin to understand that black holes are not just the end of physical theories, but strange signposts marking the places where time chooses a different path. The most remarkable thing about these ancient black holes, Webb found, is that they make us ask a soft, human question. Did time in the early universe run faster just to create these dark wells? Or did the universe possess an invisible hand, not magical, but natural, placing them exactly where they needed to be so everything afterward could unfold? Whatever the answer is, what's certain is that Webb has given us a new way of seeing, a way that does not force us to understand immediately, does not demand analysis. It simply invites us to slow down, breathe more gently, and let imagination walk ahead. These black holes in the quiet of the cosmic night cease to be frightening. They feel like ancient wells holding the universe's voice, whispering secrets carried by the weary light that journeyed so far to reach us. And as the images of these breathing dark wells linger in your mind, deep wells resting quietly in the dawn of the universe, exhaling slow rhythms of light, you feel something else stirring far away, as though behind each ancient black hole there is another rhythm, another pulse Webb only barely heard, like the faint tapping on the drum of time, a rhythm uneven, imperfect, yet strange and beautiful in its own way. There is one thing astronomers simply cannot ignore when they lean in close to the images sent back by Webb. Space itself, on the largest scales, doesn't seem to be expanding to a single, steady rhythm. Imagine the universe as an enormous lake and the Big Bang as a stone falling into it, sending ripples outward forever. In theory, those ripples should be perfectly round, spreading evenly in all directions. But Webb sees places where the surface ripples more strongly, places where it suddenly falls quiet, regions where the water seems stretched tight, and other regions where it seems to draw in again, as if time itself were breathing unevenly. Picture this. If space were a sheet of moonlit water, Webb would be the one studying each tiny ripple, each patch where the reflection of the moon looks just a little bit different. In some regions, the light is stretched out longer, like a soul arriving late. In others, the light seems to come too soon, like a message sent before its time. All these mismatched rhythms create the feeling that space is not the flat, uniform canvas we once believed it to be, but more like an ancient, hand-woven tapestry, full of secret, intricate patterns, woven from threads of time that only Webb is delicate enough to notice. The regions expanding faster, through Webb's eyes, look like ripples stretching farther across the lake, places where time thins out a little, fine as a strand of silk. The regions where space expands more slowly resemble pockets of still air, where light hesitates, lingering as though it does not quite want to leave. This makes many scientists ask, is time beating to different rhythms in different regions of the universe? If you close your eyes for a moment, you might feel how beautiful that question really is. Because if space can breathe, if it can draw in and then stretch out unevenly, then the universe begins to feel like a living being, growing in its own way. In some places, it expands as fast as light, but in other places it seems to hold on to the ancient, as if it simply cannot bear to let go of its own past. Webb's observations show that galaxies are not all moving in the same direction or at the same speed. Some are pulled sharply aside as though gripped by an invisible hand. Others drift gently, peacefully, like paper boats on a still pond. The large-scale expansion rate of the universe, what we call the Hubble constant, suddenly appears, shimmering, not fixed, not certain. Like a heartbeat Webb is pressing its ear against, discovering a soft, subtle imbalance between each beat. One scientist described this discovery like this: "It's as if the universe has its own song, and we've been hearing the tempo wrong." At first, the sentence sounds almost playful, but if you rest your hand on your chest right now, you'll feel how true it is. No two hearts beat exactly alike. No two breaths are perfectly the same. The universe is like that too. With its own quiet sensitivity, Webb is tracing these uneven places, the way a musician listens to a harp in the dark, searching for the strings that are tight and the ones that are slack. For a telescope that seems strange, because Webb doesn't hear, it sees. But by watching light, Webb is listening to the music of space. Kepler sees, but when the wind, Webb listening to the music of a song where each note lasts billions of years. Each ripple is a breath of the universe, and each uneven patch is a gentle shiver in a great fabric of time that is silently stretching. The feeling of looking at this data, according to many astronomers, is not the confusion that headlines like to talk about. It's closer to standing in front of the sea at night. You hear the waves rolling into shore in a steady rhythm, but now and then there is a wave that is a little larger or a little smaller, not chaos, just the natural rhythm of the ocean. Space is like that too. Webb shows us that the universe is not following a rigid formula. It is softer than we thought, more flexible than we assumed, and sometimes slower. Just like you right now, breathing a little more slowly, letting your mind spread out, widen, then gently draw back in again, like a small echo of space itself. When scientists see this unevenness, They do not see a threat. They see art, as if the universe were a vast tapestry woven from light and shadow, from regions of expansion and pockets of stillness. Each pattern is a hint, a trace, a message. Webb happens to catch when it looks too deeply into the dark. And the loveliest part is this: we do not understand it all yet. Webb has only lifted one tiny corner of that tapestry, revealing just a small piece of the pattern. Most of it still lies in shadow, a darkness that is not frightening at all, but very gentle. A darkness waiting for us to explore it, but never pushing, never in a hurry. And while our minds are still drifting over that cosmic lake, where strange expansion ripples rise and fall like the uneven breaths of a giant living being, Webb gently guides our gaze deeper still, down into the place where darkness is no longer just emptiness, but becomes a true character in this story. Because if you are willing to listen long enough, you begin to sense that between the regions where space expands too quickly and the ones where it slows down in a strange way, something is standing behind it all, silent, yet tirelessly supporting everything. Something that never shines, yet decides how light flows through the universe. And that is the moment we brush against the presence of the largest, deepest, strangest shadows humanity has ever known: dark matter. There is something Webb discovered that makes even the most experienced astronomers fall quiet, as if someone had gently laid an invisible hand on their shoulders. The dark matter halos, those unseen cloaks wrapped around galaxies, appeared too early. So early, they should not exist. And yet they are there, as clear as the shadow of a great tree in the moonlight. Try imagining the early universe as a young forest, where only tiny sprouts have just begun to break through the soil. And yet, in the middle of that fragile forest, Webb sees the shadows of enormous trees stretching across the ground, even though their trunks have barely had a chance to grow. Those shadows are dark matter, something no one sees, no one touches, no one measures directly, yet something that quietly lives inside every motion of light. Webb follows the way light bends as it passes ancient galaxies, just as you might watch a stream change direction as it flows around hidden rocks beneath the surface. Light, which always prefers to travel straight, slows down a little, tilts a little, curves a little, all because something invisible is holding it, not with hands, but with gravity, not with force you can feel, but with a silent presence, like darkness that breathes. And when scientists examine those gentle curves, they realize the invisible halos around these ancient galaxies are bigger, denser, and far more mature than any of our models predicted. They did not wait for the universe to calm down before they formed. They were already there, from the time when light itself still didn't know which path to take. It is as if, in its first darkness, the universe quietly built the frames that would later hold everything in place. Like an artisan preparing rough threads before weaving the shapes of the world. Those threads are dark matter, unseen but making everything visible take form. Pause for a moment and imagine you are looking at a city at night. All you really see are lights, tiny points glowing in the dark. But what truly holds the city together are the things you cannot see. Foundations, streets, bridges, pillars buried deep underground. Galaxies are the same. The bright points in Webb's images are only the surface. What binds the galaxy together is the dark. Webb finds these shadows too large, too mature, too complete, as if someone had finished building all the city's foundations long before the first light was ever turned on. These dark halos cradle young galaxies the way mountains cradle a valley, the way invisible arms lift children gently onto their shoulders. No light, no voice, no shape, but weight, presence, and quiet authority. And what makes the scientific world shiver, not from fear, but from a sense of something strangely beautiful, is just how early these shadows appear. The universe is only a few 100 million years old, still trying to understand itself, and these shadows are already there, silent, dense, ancient, like old gods seated on distant hills, watching everything bloom below their feet. Imagine this. If the universe had an orchestra, light would be the high, delicate notes that ring and shimmer, and dark matter would be the low, deep, slow, uncertain tones. You don't hear with your ears, but feel along your skin. In those moments when Webb looks straight through space, it hears that low note, a kind of sound that never actually plays, yet somehow makes every string of the universe softly vibrate. When scientists observe young galaxies wrapped in those enormous invisible shadows, they cannot help but ask a question that sounds very small, and yet is immense. How did the universe weave these invisible threads? A question that falls into the great lake of reality like a drop of water, sending out quiet, expanding ripples. Maybe those threads were woven long before the first light appeared. Maybe dark matter is not just part of the story, but the storyteller itself. Or maybe Webb has accidentally lifted a corner of something humans were never meant to fully understand, but only to feel. And tonight, as you breathe slowly with me, drifting along with the rhythm of these mysteries, you too are brushing gently against that invisible thread, not to hold it, not to understand it, only to sense, deep down, that the universe is more vast than we can fathom, and far gentler than we usually imagine. When the images of those shadows that gather light are still floating softly in your mind, those immense halos of dark matter, cradling galaxies like invisible hands, holding everything familiar and unfamiliar, you begin to realize that these shadows do not stand alone. They are not isolated islands in a cosmic ocean. Something seems to link them together. Something light as silk, fragile as glowing thread, yet strong enough to stretch across billions of light years without breaking. And as Webb peers further into those dark regions, like you leaning over a pool of water, reflecting the sky, suddenly, a delicate network begins to appear. In that ancient darkness, where the very first light was still breathing so softly, Webb sees invisible strands weaving into each other, forming a vast, gentle structure of astonishing beauty. People call it the cosmic web, the great network of the universe. But in the language of tonight, I'd like to give it another name: the rivers of light. Imagine the universe as a limitless night field, and from above these rivers of light flow silently through the dark, linking galaxies together with tiny branches as fine as breath. They are not dazzling, not blinding. They are soft, like moonlight slipping across a rooftop. Like a pale strip of brightness you only notice once you've let go of all the noise of the day. And in that softness, Webb sees something that by all expectations should not be there so soon. The cosmic web should have formed slowly, very slowly, taking billions of years to pull light, dark matter, and hydrogen gas into just the right places, like an artisan patiently weaving the largest tapestry nature has ever made. But in the corner of the universe Webb is watching, everything is still too young. So young that galaxies themselves have barely learned how to settle, how to arrange their own structure. And yet, under that infinitely deep gaze, the web of light appears clearly, almost fully formed, like a map laid out long before anyone ever walked its first path. It is a sight that leaves many scientists silent, as if they were standing in an ancient forest, knowing that this forest has existed for only a few rainy seasons. A gentle paradox, a kind of beauty that makes us quietly ask who wove these rivers of light so early. Or was the universe, in its very first moments, far more mature than we ever imagine? Close your eyes for a few breaths and picture yourself looking down from above onto a nighttime forest. In the darkness you see silver rivers, winding and curling, connecting each patch of trees. Not rivers of water, but rivers of light. Not roads built by hands, but secret pathways of the universe. Those are the threads of the cosmic web, roots that carry energy, matter, and the future of galaxies. Each thread seems to have a soul of its own, quietly drawing little drops of light closer together so that, one day, they can become cities of stars. And when Webb looks at these threads, it doesn't just see where light is. It sees where light is going to travel. The strangest part is not that this web exists, but how complete it already is. Slender strands, impossibly long, junction points where dark matter grows denser, like the forks of great rivers. Patches where everything looks a shade deeper, where light seems to gather, as if drawn by a confident brushstroke from an unseen hand. All of it whispers an old question in a new way. Does the universe really grow in a straight, simple line, the way we like to think? Or are there secret currents, flows that Webb is only just beginning to glimpse, guiding the birth and movement of galaxies? Each thread in that web feels like a quiet heartbeat of the universe. Unshowy, unloud, just a soft existence, moving slowly, yet strong enough to pull whole clusters of galaxies into its arms. If galaxies are the sparkling dots of light, then the cosmic web is the gentle background that lifts them up, like still water cradling a silent boat in the night. Webb has seen these threads while they are still too young, too early, like you seeing the glowing traces of ancient roads long before the first footsteps ever touched them. It's a piece of the story which, once placed into the larger puzzle, makes everything shift a little. The universe is not only expanding, it is quietly drawing its own roots, rhythms, and patterns that we are only beginning to decode. And the most beautiful part is this: no one rushes to give a final answer. These discoveries do not shatter the night's calm. Instead, they make the darkness feel kinder, deeper, and somehow more alive. Like looking at an old map no one has yet explained. You don't feel overwhelmed. You feel invited. A soft promise that there is more to explore. So for now, let your mind drift along those rivers of light. Let each breath of yours blend with the invisible threads tying the universe together. And when you are ready, we'll wander even further, toward the places where the universe's ancient scars are written into the light of its earliest days. Out there is a kind of light that all of us, whether we know it or not, are living with every single day. A light that is not bright, not visible to the naked eye, yet it blankets the entire universe like the lingering breath of a distant morning that never quite faded away. People call it the cosmic microwave background, the CMB. It is the light from when the universe was just over 300,000 years old. Still so young, so tender, like the first cry of a newborn child. The CMB in the language of tonight is like a minimal ancient painting. A picture painted long before any galaxy, any star, any river of light existed. It is simple, faint, balanced, like the surface of a still lake without a single bird's footprint on it. Scientists have studied this picture for decades, believing it to be a clean, uniform foundation, free of complexity. The universe's pristine sheet of blank paper. But then Webb arrived. And what happened next was so quietly beautiful that it made all those old assumptions tremble. When Webb looks through that ancient light, it is like you lifting an old cloth into moonlight. And suddenly, hidden patterns begin to appear beneath the weave, fine details worn down by time, subtle strokes that no ordinary eye could ever see. Webb shows us that behind the simplicity of the CMB, the universe is in fact layered, intricate, full of hidden structure. Like a cloth that seems plain at first glance, but under gliding moonlight reveals filigree patterns that tell the story of the weaver who made it. The structures Webb has uncovered, galaxies too grown up for such a young age. Dense halos of dark matter, a surprisingly well-formed cosmic web. All of them clash with the simple backdrop painted by the CMB. If the CMB is the old stripped-down painting, Webb is now holding up a second painting behind it. one full of curves and shapes and delicate carvings. As if someone had sketched over the blankness we were so sure of. Imagine you're looking at a smooth, untouched stretch of sand on the beach at dawn. Then a small wave retreats, and beneath that fine layer of sand, you suddenly notice countless patterns left by the water overnight. Graceful, wavering lines curling and folding, so beautiful that you have to pause and take a long, slow breath. Webb is that wave, and its discoveries are those patterns beneath the sand. The ancient scars, the universe carved into itself in the very moment it was born. These scars are not wounds. They are more like memories. Memories of gas, of light, of tiny ripples in those first moments of existence that later grew into entire galaxies, clusters of galaxies, or enormous, empty spaces stretching across the cosmos. Webb doesn't see those memories with eyes, but with the sensitivity of long wavelengths. Waves that were born when the universe itself still didn't know what it was going to become. What leaves scientists so quietly shaken is not only that Webb can see so deeply, but that this depth contradicts what we thought we knew. The CMB tells us the early universe was simple. Webb says it was complex. The CMB tells us there were no large structures back then. Webb shows us that large structures were already present. The CMB says everything was smooth and even. Webb says there were asymmetries, imbalances, traces of a picture painted by a hand that was anything but simple. When those two stories lie over each other, we begin to notice the most important thing of all. The universe was not written with a single stroke of a pen. It was written in layers, one laid over another, each layer a melody, a pattern, a memory. Webb is only helping us see the second layer, the third, the fourth. Beneath that first layer, the CMB left behind. And if you let your mind slow down right now, you might feel how beautiful that is. Because each of us is like that too. Every wrinkle, every scar, every memory is another layer building into the person you are today. The universe, in its own way, carries its layers of memory just the same. Let that idea drift across your mind very softly, like a light breeze. Let those ancient scars of the universe fold gently into your breathing, making this night a little softer, a little deeper. And when you're ready, we'll step into the next part, the most philosophical part of this journey, where the biggest question of all appears. Could it be that the universe has a rhythm we have not yet understood? When Webb shows us galaxies that grew up too early, dark wells that appeared before their time, webs of light that formed too quickly, and hidden patterns inside the universe's oldest light. All of it feels like notes that don't quite match. The symphony we thought the universe was playing. It's like listening to a song you've believed you knew by heart, and then one day you notice a strange beat hidden beneath the melody, a very deep, very gentle bass line that suddenly makes the song feel much broader. The universe may have been moving to a different rhythm, right from the beginning. Imagine time not as a steady stream ticking like a clock on your wall. Imagine it as something soft, like water, able to rush faster here, slow down there, pool into still ponds, then spill out again in streams. If, in those earliest moments, time was uneven, unstable, not straight at all, then these two early structures are no longer paradoxes. They are simply dancing to a rhythm we have never heard before. Imagine, too, that the laws of physics, the very things we've always believed to be unchanging, were once softer, more flexible, like a young branch that can bend in the wind without breaking. Maybe gravity was stronger or weaker during a few of those first instants. Maybe light used to race faster or drift slower. Maybe the very first grains of dust danced to a different tune before settling into the patterns we see today. And Webb, by looking into light that has traveled for billions of years, is simply letting us hear the last faint echoes of that strange, ancient dance. Imagine that between the layers of light and the veins of space, there are invisible hands shaping order. Not the hands of something supernatural, but the hands of natural mechanisms, for which our language is not yet subtle enough. Like when you watch a flock of birds flying in perfect formation with no single leader, everything guided by quiet rules between them. Signals too delicate for the human eye to catch. The universe might be like that. Its grand structures arranged not by something magical, but by laws whose music is too low or too high for our senses. And when we gently place all these possibilities in front of us, as softly as laying leaves on a still pond, we begin to feel that uncertainty is not as frightening as we once thought. It's like sitting under a starry sky and seeing only a portion of it. The rest is not gone. It's just waiting for eyes calm enough to truly look. The universe may have deeper rhythms, slower, more fluid rhythms, beats we can only hear when our minds are quiet. And tonight, you are listening to them with me. You are hearing the pulse of light that haven't yet been named, the pulse of invisible networks gently spinning their threads, the pulse of ancient scars still warm with the breath of time. Maybe Webb is not leading us toward final answers, but toward more beautiful questions. Maybe what Webb wants to show us is not what's correct, but what might be. And when you let that thought drift through your mind like a thin cloud, a very strange kind of lightness appears. As if you're no longer forced to understand everything, only invited to be open to it. Because who knows? Perhaps the true rhythm of the universe is not a song of certainty, but a long, flowing symphony of the unknown. A piece of music without rigid bars, only layers of tone gliding slowly, blending, changing color over time. Just like you're breathing right now. Slow, deep, steady, melting into the gentle darkness outside your window. And as the thought of another rhythm of the universe hums softly inside you, a rhythm unhurried, tender, hidden beneath layers of ancient light, you may notice that some questions don't need immediate answers. Some things retreat when we chase them, but come closer when we pause, take a long breath, and open our minds like a door quietly left ajar. From that moment, a very warm, very peaceful feeling begins to spread, as if we've reached the end of a long journey where the answers matter less than what we felt on the way. That is the moment when we step into the final part, the part reserved for night, for gentleness, for your sleep. You see, from the moment Webb gazed at the earliest galaxies, through those deep dark wells through the web of light and the hidden patterns beneath the universe's ancient background, we have wandered together through many layers of space. Each layer is like a fold in time, light as mist, thin as silk, yet full of secrets passed down from when the universe was still taking its very first breaths. And standing here at the quiet end of this journey, we begin to sense a slow truth that sinks in very deeply. The universe is so vast that even impossible things may simply be things we haven't yet touched. Perhaps those galaxies that showed up too early are not mistakes. Perhaps those ancient black holes are not contradictions. Perhaps the fully formed cosmic web in those earliest days is not a riddle. They are simply corners of reality that human light, small but persistent, has only just reached. And Webb, with its great golden eye drifting in the dark, is doing something very gentle and very beautiful. It is lighting a small lamp, not a blinding flare to banish the night, but a soft glow, just bright enough to see one more step, and then another, and then another, as if it only wants us to slow down, look more carefully, and feel more deeply. Sometimes, in this wide world, we are swept up in all the things we must know, must grasp, must explain. But when we look at Webb, at the way it silently gathers light from billions of years ago and sends it home to us, we realize that not knowing everything is also a gift that allows us to still wonder, to still dream, to still see the world as full of possibility rather than full of finished explanations. The unknown is not our enemy. It is a quiet companion, reminding us that no matter how far our intellect flies, the human heart still needs places of mystery to rest in. So right now, as the night settles around you, as the light in your room softens, as your breathing slows just a little, allow yourself to feel held by all that you don't yet know. Not to worry about it, not to chase it, simply to feel that you are living inside a universe far larger than you imagined and far gentler than you believed. Imagine you are lying in the middle of an endless night field. Above you is a sky full of shining points, but they don't blaze in a harsh way. They shine in the way of little messengers that know exactly how far they've traveled to reach you. Each point of light is a story, a question, a whisper. And in this moment, all you have to do is lie there and listen. No analysis, no effort to understand. Just listen. Hip peep seeked. Let your body sink into the bed beneath you, like a leaf slowly settling onto the surface of a calm lake. Let your mind step back from searching, from chasing after distant things. Let each thought loosen and fall away like tiny specks of dust drifting down through a dim beam of light. And let your breath, soft as a thin breeze passing through tree branches, become the only rhythm you need right now. The universe, in all its immensity, is still gentler than we think. Webb has shown us that gentleness, not in the form of clear answers, but in the way mysteries appear. Light, unhurried, like a whispered invitation. And tonight, you are allowed to fall asleep inside that invitation, like a child curling up in the arms of a kind darkness, not afraid, only feeling held. So, if your eyes are beginning to feel heavy, let them be heavy. If your breaths are growing longer, let them lengthen. If your mind wants to wander somewhere far away, let it drift. You don't need to hold on to anything anymore. No effort, no trying, no need to remember, no need to understand. Tonight, all you need to do is sleep. Sleep in the vastness of the universe. Sleep in the layers of ancient light. Sleep inside the stories Webb has gently carried back from the dark. And sleep in the softness of all that still remains unknown. I wish you a peaceful night and a sleep as deep as the darkness between the stars.